with a segment that's especially for people like me. He's calling it How Not to Kill Your Houseplants, okay? We want to keep them alive. We want to go out and purchase them and get the ones we love, but mostly we want them to live.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of times people just try too hard.
Oh, is that what's happening?
Yeah, a lot of the times what people think is they walk by a plant and it's not looking happy and they're like, I'll just give it water.
Yes.
And they walk by it again, and it's not looking happy, I'll just give it water. Yeah, so have you ever sat in a tub for like maybe 3 days? No.
It's not a good look.
That's drowning your plants.
Right.
So the key is when it comes to any plant that's out there is, despite how it appears, before you go to water a plant, use your finger. You got it? Mother Nature gave it to you.
Yeah.
You stick your finger into the soil, and if that soil feels somewhat moist, don't water. If it feels dry, the plant looks dry, then you water.
Okay.
The other word of warning is many containers, like these decorative pots, don't have any drainage in the base. So sometimes what happens is you think they need water. Well, in the base of that pot, it's full of water. So that plant's just sitting in water all the time, like you sitting in a bathtub for days on end.
Yeah.
And with that, you get root rot, and that plant dies.
I have a question about watering now.
Yes.
So, okay, we've decided it's dry, it needs water. Do I know how much water it needs? Like what?
So it's all gonna.
How do I know when to stop?
So here's the key when it comes to watering is, it depends on the plant size, the size of the pot. Really easy thing that you could do is you could take this pot right out, the plant right out of the pot. It's still in its grower container. I'm going to actually show it over here with a little guy here.
Yep.
And we can just take this. I'm going to make sure the pot comes with it as well. There we go. And if I was to put this just in a sink like that and filled water up to about that high on the pot, as soon as you see no more bubbles or you start to see the soil change color, it's fully watered.
It's done.
That's easy.
Okay.
So it all depends on pot size. It all depends on how much light that you have in your house. But the key is feeling, making sure that you don't do too much water.
Okay.
Next thing is, during the shorter daylight hours that we have, you don't need to fertilize at this time of the year.
Right.
So as you're going from October to March, daylight hours are short, even though plants look nice and green inside your home. Because the days are so short, they're not really producing much energy, and they don't need to be fed. March, when the daylight hours start to grow, that's when you start to feed. And feeding every other week, you can use something like a Miracle-Gro, or you can even use these little stakes that you can just pop in there.
Okay.
Common problem that people have is the wrong soil that they use. A reminder, you want to make sure when you're using or repotting a plant, use potting soil. Don't repot too often. Sometimes people put them in too big of a pot and they'll drown, so a smaller pot really key.
Okay.
But there's different formulated soils for orchids out there. There's different formulated soils for cacti as well. And then the number one reason why people hate plants indoors is
they die on us.
They die. And then also sometimes you'll see these little things that look like fruit flies coming from the soil.
Right.
They're called fungus gnats.
Okay.
It's too much water. Why you have them. The other thing is, too, is if you have any plant leaves that are sitting there on the decay, they're eating the decay. But what you can do is you see that right there on the side there, that little yellow?
Yep.
That's a sticky trap. So what happens with that is the insect's attracted, and it sticks just to the side. Cut your watering down, put your sticky traps up, boom, they're gone.
Okay, I have a couple of questions for you. So when it comes to the feeding, you said only do it at certain times of year. If you're feeding and it's not the time of year that you should be feeding your plant, you could be killing it?
You could be actually, you could be causing it some harm. So what happens is you may be putting soft growth on. That soft growth could attract certain insects, even though it's inside. Insects go on your clothing and all the rest that come inside your home.
Right.
It's just an unnecessary need. So outside of harm, you're spending money that you don't really need to spend. And when you're all said and done, if things don't work out for you, Tracy, that's for you.
Is this it's fake. But it's so pretty, and it's going to last longer than I will. So
I call it faux.
It's faux. It's
so faux.
You know what? Faux has come a long way, and I should totally just go in that direction.
You know,
but
even
I will
blending.
give it a good try with your tips. The other thing I want to ask is about the repotting.
Yes.
Why do you need to? Is it just disruptive when you keep taking a plant and putting it in a different pot? Like, is that why it's not a good thing?
This is a jade plant that's just sitting inside that pot. I'm just going to flip this out so then you can take a look.
Yeah.
So jade plants, for instance, are a plant that likes tight feet.
Okay, it wants to be in a tight container.
It likes
smaller.
tight shoes, right?
Okay.
So if I put it in too big of a pot, then the roots are going to go out. It's actually not going to be able to sustain and or survive. So you got to know your plants. Usually as you're repotting, many plants only need to be doing that every other year, but don't go to too big of a pot. Jade plants, sometimes it's 3 to 5 years before you start repotting. So just read a little bit. There's this thing called the internet. It's unbelievable. And if you go on there, and there's this other thing called Google, if you put in Jade plant when to repot, it's amazing, the information that's out there.
Now, does it say anything about, like, access to light? We didn't really talk about sunlight, did we?
Well, you want to make sure you're picking the right plant for the right place. Yeah. So if you have an apartment that's maybe a little bit dark, you want to do a spathiphyllum, which is a peace lily. If you have highlight, then you can do things like even some of the corn plants do very well in highlight. Right. So picking the right plant. Ask questions. When you go to buy them, and that's why I love independent garden centers. Yeah. When you go there, they're going to answer the questions. They're going to guide you and help you.